The rancher woke before the sun, not because he was rested, but because pain had learned his name. It sat in his bones like a stubborn guest, tapping at his skull, tightening its grip whenever he tried to draw a full breath. The cabin smelled of boiled water, sweat, and the faint medicinal bitterness that clung to everything the doctor touched. A lantern burned low on the table, its flame shivering, throwing long, uneven shadows across the log walls. Outside, the wind worried the eaves, a dry, lonely sound that carried the promise of another hard day. He wasn't sure he would see. He lay still for a while, listening to his own breathing, counting the spaces between each inhale as if numbers might bargain on his behalf. The doctor's words came back to him, unwelcome and precise. 3 doses, 1 each night. Don't miss one. The man had tried to sound hopeful, but hope had leaked out of his eyes long before he swung into the saddle and rode away. The rancher knew that look. He'd seen it in men watching storms roll in over fields they couldn't save. On the table, the small glass bottle caught the lantern light. There was 1 dose left, just enough to fog the glass with promise. He reached for it, fingers trembling, and held it up as if weighing it against the morning. He thought of the land outside, the fences that still needed mending, the mare that would whinny when she heard the cabin door, expecting oats and a scratch between the ears. Ordinary things. Anchors. He wondered which of them would remember him if he didn't make it to noon. The fever surged, a hot wave that made his vision blur. He pressed the bottle to his chest and waited for it to pass. When it did, he laughed softly at himself. A man shouldn't have to negotiate with his own body like this. But here he was, bargaining breath by breath. He uncorked the bottle, the sharp scent rising, clean and almost hopeful, and poured a measure into the tin cup. The metal rang softly, loud as a bell in the quiet cabin. That was when the knock came. It was so light at first he thought he imagined it, a trick of fever and wind. Then it came again, hesitant, respectful, as if the hand on the other side wasn't sure it deserved to be heard. The rancher's muscles tensed by habit. He slid the revolver closer, more for comfort than intention, and called out, his voice rough. "Who's there?" The door opened just enough to let a blade of moonlight cut across the floor. A girl stood there, framed by darkness, her shoulders hunched against the cold. She was young, barely more than a child, wrapped in a thin shawl that had been mended too many times to hide its age. Her hair was braided tightly, not for beauty but for order, and her eyes shone with a fear that had learned to stand its ground. She said his name carefully, syllable by syllable, as if it were a fragile thing. "Sir." He studied her the way he studied the weather, looking for signs. There was a rash on her wrists, faint but unmistakable. Her breathing was quick. She smelled of smoke and river water. He knew that smell. He'd known it all his life. "What do you need?" he asked, already knowing the answer. "My sister," she said. Her voice wavered, then steadied. "She is burning." "She does not wake." He closed his eyes for a moment. The fever in his head seemed to pulse an answer. He had seen sickness move through camps like a whisper turning into a shout, leaving nothing but quiet behind. He looked down at the tin cup in his hand, at the medicine swirling there, pale and potent. He thought of the doctor's careful instructions, of the math he'd done in the dark. 1 dose for 1 more night, maybe. "How far?" he asked. "Across the creek," she said quickly, hope flaring. "Under the cottonwoods." The wind rattled the window, impatient. He took a slow breath, feeling it catch then settle. He poured the rest of the bottle into the cup, not allowing himself time to reconsider. The girl's eyes widened, her hands lifting as if to refuse what she could not afford to accept. "Listen to me," he said, his voice firmer than he felt. "Half now. Half at dawn. Keep her cool. Water on the cloth. Don't let her sleep too deep." She nodded, memorizing every word like a prayer. "Sir, He held up a finger. "Go." She took the cup with both hands, bowed her head once, a gesture so deliberate it hurt to see, and backed toward the door before turning and disappearing into the night. The door closed softly behind her, the latch clicking like the end of a sentence. The cabin felt larger without her, emptier. The rancher sat there with the empty bottle in his hand, turning it slowly, watching the lantern light fracture through the glass. He set it down and lay back, pulling the blanket up to his chin. The fever came hard then, as if angered by his decision. Heat bloomed behind his eyes. His heart thudded, too fast, too loud. He wrote it the only way he knew how, by thinking of things that did not hurt. The smell of fresh-cut hay. The way the creek sounded in spring when it forgot itself and ran wild. The weight of a newborn calf, slick and breathing, life insisting on itself no matter the odds. He slept in fits, waking to the creak of the cabin settling, to the wind changing its mind, to his own name spoken by no one. Sometime before dawn, the pain loosened its grip enough for him to breathe without counting. The lantern sputtered and went out, leaving the room in gray half-light. Outside, a bird called, tentative, then another answered. Morning was making up its mind. He stared at the ceiling, feeling the ache settle into something he could endure. He did not know if he had traded his last chance for a stranger's life or if the world had simply asked him to show his hand. Either way, the choice was made. He closed his eyes and waited to see what the day would bring.